Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler, Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. Leaders, the information on today's program was gathered from many different places and many different people. So if you hear yourself in our conversation today, remember, it's not all about you. Speakers, leaders, you see, I look at them kind of one and the same. But what I've learned over and over is that great leaders become great speakers, or great speakers become great leaders. Now, there are some things that you need to keep in mind to be a great speaker. And the reason I bring this up today was that I was visiting a person and they said, "Hey, listen to me and see what I sound like." And I said, "Well, let me get the tape recorder and we'll video it and we'll make it all happen." And they said, "No, we just listen." And of course, I didn't realize that they had invited me to a location where they were going to be the speaker of the day. So let me run over some real tips that maybe you want to follow to be that great speaker. First of all, I'm going to encourage you to start and stop on time. If you say you're going to have a start time of 9 a.m., then whoever's introducing you needs to start at 9 a.m. and you need to get on with it. You see, one of the first rules of speaking, no matter where or when, is to start and stop on time. This shows that first thing that you're prepared and that you savor the listener's time as much as your own. You see, both are very important reasons. This thing of valuing the other person's time as well as the value you're placing on your time. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that I see or opportunities to change the way you're doing things is make sure that you use your own quotes. Now, if you're going to use someone else's quotes, that's all well and good. It's not a terrible thing. It's just the fact that you need to make mention of where that quote came from and who it is that said it. You see, again, it's okay to use someone else's quotes. Please don't misunderstand. But make sure that you say where the quote was from and why you're using that exact quote. How does it match up to what you're trying to say and the message that you're trying to put across? Now, starting out with someone else's quotes, although, sends the message that the information to be shared is from that person and not from you. So be careful with that. Seems like every book I pick up nowadays, whether it's a leadership book or it's just a book for fun, at the beginning of every chapter, there is some kind of quote from someone. And it's not terrible. It's just I find them sometimes don't have anything to do with that chapter or what's going on at the book at that time. So as a speaker, we want to be real careful about how we use that quote, that if it's a living person especially that quote came from, you don't sound like you're trying to really be them. Okay? Make sure of that. Now, I'm going to encourage you to start off with one of your own quotes. And if you don't have any, well, get some. But using your own quote will always send the message that you're there. It's about them. You took the time to put this into place for them. You brought value to them through this quote. And that's the big difference between doing your own and someone else's. Now, one of the other things that I see happen over and over, and it did happen when I went to see this young man, I'm going to say this pretty boldly. Never chastise the audience at the beginning of the opening statement. I mean, come on. If you're going to chastise the audience, even in jest, even in a joke, the opening dialogue is not the place. Maybe the podium is not the place at all, from what I'm telling you. I don't think that this comes in anywhere where you need to be as a motivational speaker or even a leadership speaker. Often when the audience hears a reprimand sandwiched in with humor, I have to tell you, they automatically turn off the rest of the speech. And so they're not going to get that information that you're trying to share with them. And what a shame that is. You see, they will be closed off and hard to restart. Almost every time I've heard a speaker speak after lunch, he goes, well, you know, the hardest thing in the world is to speak after lunch because you guys are all going to fall asleep. You see, he was already sending the message that I don't care if you listen to me or not, you guys are going to sleep anyhow, so have at it, and I'll do my thing and you do yours. I'm going to suggest you don't do that, okay? Speaking behind after someone after lunch is not that big a deal. If you're interesting and you have a message that they want to hear and bring the value to them. Now, if you do reprimand, I'm going to tell you your message is going to be lost very quickly. They're going to turn you off, even if they laugh at one of your jokes. So whatever follows is tainted by the opening censure, you know, it's done. Other times I hear speakers tell some kind of off-color joke at the beginning. Sets people off. You know, it's just not necessary to be there. Okay? Now, the next point I want to really make is place your main point in the opening statement. You see, today we're talking about speaking in front of a group, and we're really talking about how you are perceived in those first few words. Now, I'm going to encourage you to do something that most people don't do, and that's start out by saying thank you for having the opportunity to have me with you today. Thank you for letting me share with you this piece of valuable information. Already you're saying thank you and you haven't done anything. You know, that is a way to build a bridge. So state what you will be speaking about in your opening words. Okay, today we're going to be talking about speaking in groups. And we're going to talk about it in a different manner. We're going to talk about it from the audience participation side and not the speaker side. How easy is that to state those things distinctly, clearly, and move on to the next piece? If it is important, make it important. You know, the thing about being a speaker is we have a voice and we can modulate our tone. We can also modulate how loud and how soft. And there are times to do both. But if you're not enthusiastic and excited about what you're going to speak about, I guarantee you your audience will not be either. Now, if it's reasonable to repeat and rephrase the main point, do it. I found that people need to hear things more than once in order to grasp onto it. Some people need to hear it and then kind of let it mold around in their mind until they're ready to take on the next piece. Other people need to hear it more than once just to take and have it get through. You need to know what your audience is doing. But I'll tell you what, make sure that you repeat and rephrase the main point. It's not going to hurt anything. Don't make the mistake by thinking, oh, they'll get it after a while. I'm going to tell you what, if they don't get it within the first minute and a half to 2 minutes, as a reason why that their valuable time should be used listening to you, well, they won't. Now, make sure that you do in your speaking have a beginning, a middle, and an end with an overview of the main message. You see, it's okay to tell a story. It's okay to do these things. It's okay to do whatever you're doing. But you always want to end up with some kind of overview of that main message. If it's 3 points, make sure you cover them again. Well, the old method of telling what you're going to tell them, and then making the point, and then those telling them what you told them may not be the most effective way. You see, the old method of what you are going to tell them, telling them, and making your point. That's the way to make this happen. You've got to understand the 7 different learning styles, and you've got to put that into your speaking mailbag. So you can send out that message, and there's going to be everyone's going to receive it in their own manner. Now, I can't tell you enough on this next piece. So many times I see speakers and they tell me, oh, I can stand up and speak anywhere and I can just pull it out of my hat and just make it happen. And yes, I will tell you that most speakers that are talented can do that to a point. I'm going to encourage you to do something different. I'm going to encourage you to write out your thoughts quickly and without worrying about the spelling and punctuation, and write it out as quick as you can and walk away from it for a few minutes. Now, that sounds kind of silly, I'm sure. But here's the thing. If you just write down all your thoughts, you get them all correlated someplace, and then you give it a minute to cool off. Then come back and read it out loud. Reading out loud is going to be a big piece for you. You see, reading out loud will let you hear the words. Is this what you meant to say? Can I pronounce those words? Do I know what each one means? And does it sound like me talking or someone else? Those are great questions, by the way. So really writing it down and then speaking the words. Now, that becomes very important because enunciating a word is going to be really important. Knowing where to put an inflection in there and what kind of power to put behind it is going to be important. But look at the words and make sure that they're what you meant to say. Okay, and that's why I tell you to write it down real quick and get it out, get excited about it. Make sure you can pronounce those words. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you're using big words and you really can't pronounce them and you might not even know what they mean, don't use them. But if you have a word that most people use, but you're struggling getting it out of your lips, making sure your tongue doesn't wrap around it very well, change the word. Change the word to mean the same, but understanding that you're going to be able to deliver it in a different manner. If you've ever heard someone stutter up at a podium, not because they're stutterers, but because they did not understand the word or they could not pronounce it, you know exactly what I mean. Make sure you know what each word means. If someone calls you a question and you don't know what that word means, I'm going to tell you what, that's not a good thing. Even if you say to them, hey, I'm not really sure. What are you going to say? I'm not really sure, but it sounded good in that space, but I don't understand. But I'll get back to you. I think you've lost your credibility there. And make sure that you're not sounding like someone else. Now, I think it's great to have 2 or 3 different voices. And there's times when I use those different voices if I'm reading a script or if I'm doing something else. But as a speaker, you have to decide very quickly what is your cadence and what is your voice modulation and what words and how you're going to be received. Now, once you've read it out loud, and you've looked at the words and everything like that, I want you to then take that and rewrite it. I want you to rewrite it into bullet points or outline form and memory joggers. Now, memory joggers, for me, are just words. And some people I know that are professional speakers, they're phrases. And this comes into that piece where if you're speaking on stage and using some kind of PowerPoint or some kind of presentation, do not read off the screen. The people in the audience can read off the screen. They don't need you for that. So don't do that. Put the bullet points up there if you need to. Put the bullet points somewhere in front of you and use your overhead, use your video, use your whatever as a side piece or as a come on, but not your words. Okay? So rewrite it, put it in bullet points, add some memory joggers. And here's the thing. I print it in about 20 point because I can put it on a podium or I can put it someplace else. I can walk by and glance at it and automatically re-stimulate my mind of where I'm at and where I should be doing. This becomes a very important piece. When I work with certain individuals that speak on Sunday mornings, it seems like they have been taught to carry around a piece of paper with them. And then the other ones are seem to be taught that they use the PowerPoints up on the big screen and they're always turning to read off the screen. Now there's some really tricks to the trade here. One is to have a screen down in front so you can check it out and keep knowing you're at. Two is to take and have it on your iPad and have it be able to scroll. Or three, print it out in big bold letters so you can walk by and just touch it someplace and make sure that you know where you're at. Encourage you to take and look at that bullet points and make your message and memorize what you're going to say. Take that and go through all the points out loud. I can't tell you how important this is. And you're going to say, when I say the next part, boy, that guy's just silly. Well, I'm not. Get up in front of the mirror and start at the beginning and go through all the way to the end. Listen to yourself. Sometimes I video myself. You know, I want to see what my inflections go. I want to see where my hands are. I want to see how I'm standing. What's the message I'm sending before I speak? And as I pause in between different situations, what message is being sent then? Wow, I can't wait to take and hear more of what he's got to say. Or, boy, I'm glad he's almost done. You see, that's an important piece. I'll tell you what. You'd be amazed how many times I've been in an organization and I've looked around and there's people who get their arms crossed and slunched down in their chair and they're just waiting for you to get done. Think about it. Now, make sure you're going through it in front of the mirror. Look for stumbling places. Look for stumbling places on words, on phrases, on sentences, people's names, wherever. Find the stumbling place. Then you can go over it many times till it's not a stumbling place again anymore. Are there words and phrases that need to be changed? I have to tell you that I'm just going to tell you the truth. I run all these things by Miss Robin, and as I speak out loud and even in the mirror, she'll take and say, oh, let's wait a minute. That phrase doesn't fit there. That sentence doesn't fit there. Those words you're using don't quite gel on with the idea that you're trying to pass. So change them. It's not a terrible thing. You know what? It's a wonderful thing when someone else can listen to you and say, well, you know, that's great. Can we make it better? Think about that. Always at the end, ask the question, did I accomplish the result you were looking for? Now, I say that really seriously. When I go to give a keynote or I go to speak at a location, I'm always asking the leaders there, what's the outcome that you're looking for? Is this a motivational piece? Is this an instruction piece? Is this a I'm good, you're good, we all feel good piece? Is this come tell people where I came from and how I got here? You see, it's that end piece that gets every time. So make sure that you know where you're at and what you're doing. So when someone's, you ask yourself, did I accomplish the result that you were looking for? You're asking that to the people who invited you there, maybe paying the bill. Well, I'll tell you what, I hope they always say yes. But if you didn't interview them before you wrote the speech, before you put the pieces together, you aren't going to know the answer to that at all. Now, did you make your point? I usually ask that to the audience. And a lot of times I'll do it from the stage. A lot of times I'll do it as they walk out and we're shaking hands or went up to the back of the room. Did you get what I was sending? Did you understand it? Is there something that you took away today that you can put in your life right now? If so, what is that? Well, let me write that down. I want to take and keep track of it. It's important that you do these things. So now that you've written it, you've talked it out loud, you've maybe made some changes, You kind of think you're ready to go. Well, now the hard part comes. I like to read my bullet points and hear myself speaking every word in my head. A lot of times I'll read through this without speaking out loud first. When I get to this point, I'm pretty well clear on what my bullet points are, but I'm going to go through that story that I'm going to tell. And I do it just in my head as memory joggers first. Then I do it out loud again. Then I take and read it again. Then I do it out loud again. Then I read it again. I do it out loud again. And then I close my eyes and I get to take and see the whole thing in my mind. I picture myself on the stage or in front of the people, who they are, what they're wearing. I visualize everything that I can. And finally, I take that visualization and I practice in front of that mirror to watch my facial inflections and my body language. You see, your body language as speakers, as leaders, is just as important as the words you're using. If your body language says, I really don't care about you and I don't value you and I really don't want to be here, believe me, they are going to pick up on that pretty darn quick. So when we're talking about speaking in front of a group, we really need to know a couple things. One, a lot of people don't like to do this, and I understand that. And it's usually because when I speak to them long enough and I probe them long enough, I find out that they heard someone tell them that. Not a terrible experience that they actually had, but someone planted that piece into them. So we need to take that out and replant that, hey, everybody's just like you are, but you're trying to set a value-based information sharing. It's only a big difference. So, yes, I make it sound pretty easy. And if so, I want you to take it that way. And if not, I want you to get a hold of us here and find out how we can help you, help yourself get there to take it in a farther situation. But when you do this over and over, soon you'll be able to speak clearly and you'll be able to do it off the cuff to an extent. If it's a keynote, you're going to want to interview the leadership to find out what the end result is that they're looking for. If it's just, hey, can you come and tell a story? Have one prepared. If they're coming to you and saying, hey, we'd just like for you to come and speak to our men's group about how you got to where you are and where you came from. Sometimes you can do that off the cuff, but you know what? I even put down notes to remind myself on that. This thing of speaking is more than just standing up and opening your mouth and letting it all hang out. I'm going to encourage you to understand that never forget to do your preparation. Never forget to do your preparation, because that is the mark of a great speaker. Now today we started out with rather things about a person I went to see because they asked me to come and listen to them speak. And there was some steps here as for speakers, all speakers. Do you remember what they are? Well, the first one that's really big, bold letters is start and stop on time. Now, you're saying, well, how do I know when to stop on time? Well, I tell you what I do is I have someone in the audience that I've already spoken to ask them to hold up one of my cards that says, if it's a rabbit, it says speed up. If it's a turtle, it's slow down. If it's the other one, it's time to quit. It's time to quit. It's got a big clock face on it. Let me tell you how important that is to have that person behind you. It's really important. Start and stop on time. That's the big one. Okay, next one. Never chastise the audience at the beginning of the opening statement. Never say, something, why are you here? Or it's after lunch, I'm going to have to struggle. Or, you're always setting the pace that something terrible is going to happen. Don't do it. Place your main point in the opening statement. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about speaking in public and how to put that on and some things to look out for. Now, it's pretty simple. It's right there in front of me. We talked about preparation. We talked about how important it is to be prepared before you go on stage. Now, I have to tell you that this is probably the biggest piece. If I can put these little pieces in your mind and you grab a hold of them, this will take you where you want to go. So make sure that you write down everything. Just write it down quick and fast and try to get all your thoughts and ideas there. Then go back and reread it and write it down into bullet points. You very well might have to grab some bullet points and move this thing closer so you don't have 20 bullet points, you only have 3 or 5. You see? Once you get that all rewritten and you've got into bullet points, you've got some memory jogger words, you're ready to take and go to the next step. Read it through aloud. Make sure that you know what each word is and how to pronunciate it and what each word means. Have someone else look at this now and then have someone else listen to you. Practice in front of the mirror. You know what? It's not a terrible thing. It will give you a chance to see how your face reacts to the words. It'll give yourself a way to look at your hands and where they are in your body. And they're not in your pockets. They're out. They're motioning, but they're not waving all over the place. Okay? Practice. Practice, practice, practice. I can't say that enough. Because when it's your time to stand and deliver, you want to be ready. You want to speak with confidence. You want to speak with panache. You want to be known as the person who is complete, concise, and able. Have authority of yourself when you're speaking. Stand up straight. Put your shoulders back. You know, the worst that can happen is they like you too much. I know that I've made this kind of sound pretty easy, and it's probably not for some. And if so, you really do need to call here Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training Development. And you really do need to take the time to work with us. Let us work with you to overcome that piece that someone else planted in your mind. I was very fortunate at a young age. I realized that speakers were the ones who other people followed and listened to. And even though I was just a 14-year-old kid in front of a Boy Scout troop, I realized sometimes if I talked slow and low, that they listened a lot quicker than when I raised my voice and acted authority. Okay? When you're telling a story, which you always are, by the way, no matter what you're doing, you're telling a story. I'm telling a story today. I'm telling a story today on how to speak in front of people. But that story needs to add value to them, the listener. If you're not adding value to the listener, you're not adding value to anyone else. So you need to take and do that practice. You need to put this into place. I hope I've made my points very solid and clear that when you're speaking in front of a group, there's some definite do's and don'ts. And it gets easier with time. Well, I see my time is coming to a close, which is not all that unusual here at Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training Development when we speak on the radio. So on behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and the whole Leadership Corner team, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being a part of today's program. Now, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate. Give me a call, 727-422-1833. 727-422-1833. Send me an email, dick@ewfw.org, dick@ewfw.org, or go to the website. Spend some time there. Take a look around, and then click on that button and send me something. Go to www.ewfw.org, www.ewfw.org. Now, I'm going to put a challenge out to you right now. I would really love to hear from you to tell me what 1 or 2 nuggets of wisdom that you've pulled down today from today's opportunity and how you're going to put them in place in your life today. You just make a note on there. It's talk about speaking. I'll know which one we came from. If you would like to have these notes from today's topic, we can do that. But you have to send me a little note and tell me what you need. Well, I can see we're right out of time. So until next time, this is DW the Wrangler saying, ride hard. ride fast.